Tonight, meet a cabbie whose meter is running, but whose mind isn't. Find out the real reason why your teachers told you not to play with fire extinguishers. And see what problems occur when brazen bandits order carryout. It's all ready to go right now on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Delta 1566, give me a call on your primary.
Now, welcome your hosts for America's Dumbest Criminals, Daniel Butler and Debbie Allen.
Thank you so much. Daniel, is that a plunger you have there or a do-it-yourself liposuction kit? Which I'd like to borrow a little bit later.
No, it's a transistor radio, Debbie. Yes, it's a plunger or plumber's helper, yes. And a new one. At least, well, that's what Lee, the prop guy, told me. But he was smiling kind of funny, so I don't know. No.
And why are you carrying a plunger?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It may look like a mild-mannered plumber's helper, but it was actually used as a weapon in one of tonight's story.
At least it's rubber-tipped for safety, huh?
Oh, yeah, boy. Yeah, those metal ones really hurt. But yeah, I mean, even robbers have to comply to, you know, national safety standards. You don't want those OSHA guys on your back.
Well, you keep a firm grip on your prop, and I'll plunge into our first story, okay? It's a twisted take on Robin Hood. Now, our central character robs from the poor to give to himself. But his scheme was blown wide open when he was caught on camera.
I got called to a King Soopers. We had a report of a suspicious activity. When I got there, they have a heavy surveillance system at the store. A security officer plugged in a tape and showed me a driver for the disabled American veterans pulling up behind the King Soopers, getting out and stashing. He had a color TV and a couple of comforters and I think a shirt that he liked, and you know, just whatever he liked during his pickups for the day. He stashed them behind a dumpster, obviously with the intent to come back later. Fortunately, with our sharp security officers there, we were able to intercept the goods and put them aside and return them to the DAV. When we called the guy, I talked to him on the phone about the incident, and he said he didn't know what I was talking about. So I said, why don't you come on into the police department? And I said about 4 words to him. I said, come in, sit down. I played the tape, asked him, any questions? He said, nope. I said, sign here on the ticket. I said, okay, video doesn't lie.
You've heard the road to ruin is paved with good intentions. Well, we found the trail to trouble is sprinkled with fire extinguisher dust.
See how it all settles as you watch Something to Remember Me By.
Well, we got a call for a suspicious activity. A concerned citizen or alert citizen called and said that there was a group of kids wheeling what appeared to be a filing cabinet across the street from the school. And she requested an area check to see if we could locate the subjects. We went across the street and looked at the school, found a broken window and what appeared to have been a fire extinguisher that had been extinguished around the area, and tracks and footprints leading out of the cafeteria. Followed the tracks and the footprints all the way up to the house. We walked around the side of the house. We found a piano in the behind the back gate, and we all started kind of chuckling. And one of the suspects went ahead and opened the door for us and got 4 guys out of there, and they basically admitted to had been drinking and smoking a little marijuana and got a little hungry and mischievous, so they busted into the school and took a piano and took the food that was in the refrigerator.
You know, there's something to be said for a nice dinner in a diner if you hit there on a night when it's not too busy.
Well, evidently, that's pretty much what this robber was thinking. He thought he'd hit there on a night when it wasn't too busy with an accomplice.
But sure as clockwork, the surveillance cameras caught the whole thing. See what the video recorded in Clinton, South Carolina. It's a slow night here at the diner. Not much going on. Not much action over at the register either, sad to say. Oh, hope this guy coming out of the restroom appreciated that new fruity-smelling soap.
come into the register, must want to settle up and go. Rob me? What do you mean you're gonna rob me? And how do I know that's a gun in your pocket? It looks suspiciously like a bar of fruity soap, if you ask me. Okay, keep your drawers on. I'm opening it. Well, sorry you came on a slow night, Mr. Soap in the Pocket. Do me a favor and leave good, clean fingerprints. Hello, police department. I just got robbed, and I've got it all on tape. Plus, the robber's got an identifying mark. I think you'll find that your man smells of fruity soap.
In Tampa Bay, Florida, it's illegal to eat cottage cheese on Sunday after 6 p.m.
Consumers today, we're told, are far more suspicious and jaded than people a generation ago. We demand quality and expect to get our money's worth. And then there's this poor sap who smelled something was fishy but couldn't resist the bait. He provides us with tonight's installment of America's dumbest excuses.
We were working an undercover drug operation where we send our cop in as the person buying the drugs. We sent our guy in with a $20 bill, and the dealer would not sell to him. So we send our guy back in with $30. The dealer still won't sell to him with $35.
Come on, man, I really need some.
Again?
Yes, I need it.
$40.
Man, I need some dope, man. I'm Jones. Come on.
Wait. No. We make it up to $50.
What? I'm sorry. I really need it. How much money, Jones? How much money? All I got is $50.
At $50, he finally sells the dope to our undercover cop.
All right, man. You're under sheriff's office.
You are kidding me! No way, man!
Okay, let's go.
No!
We asked him, why didn't you take the 20? Why didn't you take the 30? Well, he was suspicious of our undercover guy, that he was a cop, but he really needed the $50, so he took the chance.
You know, when passing through a toll booth or boarding a bus, it's always a good idea to have correct change right there. But there's nothing correct about what a would-be passenger in Minneapolis tries in this surveillance video. Here's tonight's Blue Light Special.
When this bus pulled up to the stop, look what the waiting passenger presented in lieu of bus fare.
I don't got no cash. Do you take guns?
But mass transit is a cash-only business, so the fast-thinking driver slammed the door and sped away.
What individual at 11:30 at night would try to rob a bus like, Jesse James in the old Wild West? There's no money to be had.
Yet this young man pointed a modified short-barreled rifle and, using colorful language, demanded greenbacks.
Driver has no money and does not have access to the money. When it goes in the fare box, it goes into a locked vault.
So the bad guy was left standing flat-foot, the door of opportunity slammed in his face, and we offer him this token of our affection by inducting him into the Blue Light Special Hall of Shame. Doodles.
How far would you go to make a robbery look good? Well, probably not as far as the two guys you're about to meet. Travel with us to Chelmsford, Massachusetts to find a couple of lowlifes up to some unbelievable hijinks.
The call came in that we had an armed robbery and 2 people were shot.
Well, apparently they needed a few extra bucks, so they decided that there was enough money in the till to split between them if they staged their own robbery.
They made up this intense plan to stage the robbery, but rather than just say they were robbed and shot, they actually followed through with shooting each other.
They thought it would be much more believable if somebody was wounded. Well, neither one of them wanted to go first, so they decided, well, if you shoot me, then I'll shoot you. They thought that was a great idea. So that's what they did.
I'll shoot you first. No, I don't know about all. No.
One him first. He shot one of them in the left shoulder area.
The second guy started to get cold feet after the first guy got shot. He was reeling in pain. He wasn't sure he wanted to go through with it, but the other one was insisting that he goes through with it.
Give me that gun.
Before he passed out, he took the gun and shot his other fellow employee.
What they obviously didn't realize that a 22 could hit a piece of bone or something and deflect in there and go anywhere in the body, but they thought that, well, I'm just going to be a 22. It's not going to be that bad.
A grand total of $400 was involved. It didn't take much, so they finally admitted what had really happened. They told us where the money and the gun was.
Pretty dumb, yeah. I know. They have to go a long way to top that one, I think.
When traveling, the crew of ADC eats at Tony Roma's. Tony Roma's, over 200 locations worldwide.
And now with news from the guy considered to be the phantom menace of journalism. Here's Daniel with ADC Headlines.
All right, there's speeding, and then there's this guy from New Orleans. Rocketing along on a stolen motorcycle, the man was clocked at 162 miles per hour. When he realized that police were after him, he lost control of the bike and slid off the road onto an embankment near a cemetery. Oddly enough, amazingly, he sustained only a broken leg and a world-class case of road rash. When the promotions director at a Houston TV station rigged the contest to have his mother-in-law win a new pickup truck, he had no idea that his devious deed would be exposed to the viewing public. When his scam was exposed, the judge ordered him to wear a placard at a college football game broadcast on the TV station, and his sign read, in part, "I am a liar, a cheat, and a thief." Okay. Got to sit right next to the guy with the wig and the John 3:16. A Nashville man was charged with stalking when police discovered that he kept detailed records on hundreds of women he had met as a door-to-door salesman. In all, he had 52 scrapbooks filled with memorabilia. Now, that's creepy, yeah, for sure, but far more disturbing was the discovery police made when they searched his home. On videotape, this man had collected every episode of Family Feud and Three's Company. Now, that's creepy. Huh? That's weird. And that closes the file on ADC Headlines. News ripped from somewhere near the back of your local newspaper. Debbie?
Cabbies tend to be an independent lot. They like the independence of charting their own course. And in doing so, some roll up surprisingly higher fares in the process. We learned of a taxi driver in Florida who didn't want to be taxed with the paperwork necessary to operate his cab. See what we mean.
The chief received information that there was a taxi service operating in the city without a franchise license. So what I did was I came up to the PD, used the payphone right behind me, and I called up the name of the cab company. It was Charlie's Taxi Service. So I called him up and I told him I needed a cab, and he said, where can I pick you up at? So I told him pick me up at the library, which is right across the street. And he said, well, I'll be there in about 5 minutes. So I went over and got in the car, and he said, well, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going to work. I work at the Marion County Jail. I observed there was no meter in the car. So what he did, he had a cell phone, and he must have thought I was stupid. So he took the cell phone down and pushed a few numbers as if he was looking up a timer or something. Actually, he was just punching numbers and dialing a number and thought I was, believing. Once we got at the back of the jail, I asked him how much it was. He said $6. Told him he was under arrest and, for operating without a franchise license. So we was talking, and he said, well, you said there was 1,000 people at the jail? I said, yeah, but now it's 1,002 because you two are going to jail right now.
We see all kinds of wacky weapons used by criminals on ADC. Tonight, Phil, we're going to christen a new one as we welcome the induction of suction, courtesy of a plunger.
One night last November, we were called to a residence near Madisonville where a couple had awakened in the middle of the night to find a man looming in their doorway, armed with 2 screwdrivers and a plunger. Since it was an odd time of day and since they had not called for either a handyman or a plumber, they quickly arose from bed and ran him from the house.
What are you doing in my house?
He was not easily deterred, however, and then went to the rear of their residence where he began pounding on their patio door with the plunger.
Let me in!
They, of course, called 911 and we responded quickly, but he had already left the scene when we got there. Our deputies fanned out throughout the area and found that a number of other residents under construction in the area had been burglarized. And they also found a car that was in a ditch. They ran the license plate to a man from the Slidell area and, in fact, a few minutes later located him walking down the highway. He was extremely intoxicated. He seemed unable to communicate or even remember how he had come to be there. After the subject was arrested, he was booked with criminal damage, trespassing, leaving the scene of an accident, burglary, and, of course, carrying an unregistered plunger.
Based on the little mini film festival you're about to see, you're going to wonder if druggies ever hit anyone up for drugs who isn't a police officer. The coast definitely isn't clear as we travel all across America on a crime-busting spree.
Partner and I were going to go out and look for some areas to purchase crack cocaine.
In Vice, working drug trafficking. We were working one of the public housing areas. Had on a police coat.
In full uniform.
With gun belts, the whole works.
And happened to stop behind one of the buildings on a public street, well lit,
no problem, just to see what was going on in the area.
And one of the people I knew waved me down and wanted to sell us crack cocaine.
He said, "How y'all doing? What do you need?" "I want to get a 20.
Knowing that she was going to recognize me at any minute.
"I've got a rock if you're interested."
And I drove back up there and handed her $20 and told her that we were ready to buy the crack from her.
I couldn't believe what he was saying, being how we were dressed.
We arrested her for retail theft.
Turns back to my sergeant and said, "Let me get a 20. I ain't got all day. I got places to be."
About 2 weeks later, we're going to do the same thing in the same car, and the same girl waves us down and wanted to sell us crack.
So my sergeant says, "Okay, you're under arrest."
She looked at me and she says, "You really have to be careful because there's a couple undercover officers working in this area." And she goes, "A big guy like you," and pointed to my partner in the back and said, "A little guy like you."
Trying to sell to an undercover, which was not really undercover.
So I told her that I wanted her to get in the car so we could smoke the crack down the road. Well, as we started driving off, I pulled my badge out and I showed it to her and I said, "Bessie, it's me again. You're under arrest."
In Blythe, California, you are not permitted to wear cowboy boots unless you already own at least 2 cows.
I had my bicycle stored at my brother's house, and I was going to go for a bike ride. So I went to my brother's house, I pulled it out of the garage, closed the garage door and went through the house, and the bicycle was gone. So we looked all over for the bicycle and couldn't find it. 2 days later, I was riding down Mary McLeod Bethune Boulevard, and I see this guy riding a bicycle looked just like mine. I turned around. When I turned around, he took off running. So I chased him down, and I caught him and arrested him and checked the serial number, and sure enough, it was my bicycle. He kept saying, "Oh, that's my bicycle. That bicycle wasn't stolen. I bought it." And I couldn't take it anymore. I said, "Well," I said, "the bicycle was stolen 2 days ago, and it was my bicycle that was stolen." He goes, "Oh, man." He said, "I guess I messed up." Then finally, a couple months later, we went to trial on it. Attorney didn't prepare for the trial. He kept asking me how I knew that bicycle was stolen. So finally I told him, I said, "Because it was my bicycle that was stolen." They kind of stopped questions right then.
Now let's look back at one of ADC's greatest hits from the year 1997.
As you can see, this man walks into the shop looking like he might buy something, but he quickly and quietly lets the women behind the counter know that he has a gun and wants their money. Not overly impressed with his laid-back technique, employee Gene Casey decided to see if liquor goes to the goofy gunman's head. This guy's got a hard head. Co-worker Debbie Elson tries some Napa Red. Ouch, that's wine on his forehead, folks, not blood. This round was definitely on him, but when the final bell rang, the women stood tall, and our wobbly wino was quickly arrested and sent to prison.
Just when we think we've seen it all, we realize that there's a whole dimension of weirdness that we barely glimpsed.
Tonight, we have a strange story of a bank robber who has both a surprising alias and an astonishing modus operandi. Here's the honest-to-goodness truth of we're not making this up.
There was a guy, has a striking resemblance to Jesus that lives in town. Long hair, beard, blue eyes, real striking resemblance to any portraits of Jesus.
This guy actually believed he was Jesus, and he called himself Jesus.
One day he got the banner idea to try to rob a bank. He goes into the bank with a paper bag. He had a couple of shotgun shells and a stick-up air freshener in the bag, and he walks in there and hands it to the teller.
I think it was kind of a Robin Hood thing.
He says, "I'll be back in 30 minutes for my money." So he promptly leaves. 30 minutes later, he comes back.
Robbing the rich to feed the poor.
And he's promptly arrested by the on-duty detectives and patrol officers for attempted bank robbery.
When we interviewed him, he went through all the scriptures and had a logical answer for everything according to the Bible as he saw it. He actually said, "I'll come back in 30 minutes and pick up the money." I mean, he actually truly believed he was going to get away with this thing.
Well, it's time for us to clear out, but before we do, we want to thank all the officers who helped us with tonight's show.
They represent thousands of others who are on the job to make this world a better place.
Here at ADC, we want you to know how much we appreciate your good work.
Of course, we'll be back next week, but if you've got a lead on a story or you just can't wait for more state-of-the-art stupidity, visit our website.
Or if you have a backed up drain, you can call us too. The address is www.dumbcrimes.gov.
As always, we hope that we've all learned from others' mistakes.
But if you haven't, we just might see you next week on America's Dumbest Criminal.
Goodbye.